Shalom, everyone. Thanks for clicking in to Pearls of Joy, Tru-Truth. First of all, I give praise, glory, and honor to the Most High Yahuwah. Today, I am going to do part 3 of a series that I did called Whoredoms of Israel. And the subtitle of this part is Ignorance and a Lack of Understanding. Ignorance means a lack of knowing and a lack of information. Proverbs tell us to get wisdom, to get knowledge, to get understanding, and in all of our getting, get understanding. Some of us have heard messages where verses and passages are quoted. Unfortunately, many times some passages are quoted out of context or are partially quoted. An example, many people quote Hosea 4:6, and this verse is usually partially quoted because of the grace doctrine. Don't want to deal with the law or because of residue of habit. This partiality leads to ignorance. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people are destroyed for a lack of knowledge." This is where they usually stop. But it goes on to say, "Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject you, and you shall be no priest to me, seeing that you have forgot the law of Elohim. I will also forget your children." Because we, the children of Israel, Judah, were priests of the Most High, and we are being restored to come back to that position of being a priest. But because of the whoredoms that many of us may have committed, it hinders us from becoming the priest of the Most High. He took his spirit from the children of Israel, and to this day we are the children and are enduring the curses due to ignorance and not obeying. The sins of the fathers will come upon the children. When there is no knowledge, ignorance and rebellion prevails. When children are not raised up in the laws of Yahuwah, or they reject the laws of Yahuwah, we take on the nature of our earthly fathers. Now I am going to talk a little bit about the sin of whoredoms of Aholah and Aholabah. I mentioned them in the last part of this series, part 2. Aholah is a symbolic name of Israel, and Aholabah is a symbolic name for Judah. These symbolic names are similar to the symbolic names in the book of Hosea concerning Gomer. If you get the chance, go back and look at the video part 2 of this. The children of Gomer, which was symbolically the worthless whore who bore children to Hosea that represented judgment, no pity, no mercy, and Yah divorcing Israel. In Ezekiel 23, Aholah and Aholabah, Israel and Judah that is the subject concerning Yah's judgment of the two nations. Jerusalem is the translation used in Ezekiel 23, but that's actually talking about Judah. Judah and Israel were one nation, and Israel as a whole belonged to Yahuwah. Ezekiel 23:4 says, and I'm going to read a lot of these verses in this particular passage. I will skip over some, but I'm going to read some, just to put the point out there. 23:4 says in Ezekiel, "And the names of them were Aholah and the elder, and Aholabah her sister, and they were mine." You see, Yah was married to Israel and Judah, And they bore sons and daughters. Thus were their names. Samaria is Aholah, and Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, is Aholabah. Israel committed adultery with the Assyrians, who is Ashur. That's verse 11. Aholah, she liked the good-looking men, the young, good-looking men. Ezekiel 23:5 says, and Aholah played the harlot when she was mad, and she dotted on her lovers, on the Assyrians, her neighbors, dotting herself upon them that wore blue. In that context, it says blue, but in other contexts, it says purple. And she was like some women today. They get themselves all dressed up and they put on their hot rags, and they are out in the street trying to lure someone in, and they have specific picks. They want them to be good looking. They want them to have some money coming in, and they prey on them, just as these women who were considered to be whores. They dotted themselves every time they saw something that they wanted to get with, and they turned to other gods instead of the Most High, which were clothed with blue or purple. They were captains and rulers. All of them were desirable young men, horsemen riding upon horses. They were governors and deputies. They were attractive young men, and this is who they were going after. Verse 7 says, thus she committed her whoredoms with them, with all them that were the chosen men of Assyria, and with all on whom she dotted, with all their idols she defiled herself. Neither left she her whoredoms brought from Egypt. Because, see, they forgot, and that's the problem with most of Israel. We forgot through the captivities, the laws, judgments, and statutes that was taught to us when we were in the land. Our forefathers would not obey them. Therefore, we were either kicked out of the land, someone else came in and took over, and they enslaved us. And when they enslaved us, we were not able to practice the laws of the Most High. Therefore, we forgot a lot of stuff. And in that forgetting, we became very ignorant of his laws. So verse 8 says, neither left she her whoredoms brought from Egypt. You see, we learned the ways of the heathen. For in her youth they lay with her, and they bruised her breast, the breast of her virginity, and poured their whoredom upon her. Wherefore I have delivered her into the hand of her lovers, into the hand of the Syrians, upon whom she dotted. These discovered her nakedness. They broke her sons and her daughters. They took her sons and her daughters and slew her with the sword, and she became famous among women, for they had executed judgment upon her. As I mentioned in one of the other videos, the sin of whoredoms, the penalty for the sin of whoredoms is death. Aholabah liked young men as well, who had high position and that wore red. And her sister Aholabah saw this. She was more corrupt in her inordinate love than than her sister, and in her whoredoms more than her sister in the whoredoms. This is verse 11. She dotted upon the Assyrians, her neighbors, captains and rulers, clothed most gorgeously, horsemen riding upon horses, all of them desirable young men. Then I saw that she was defiled, that they took both one way, and that she increased her whoredoms. For when she saw men portrayed upon the wall, the images of the Chaldeans portrayed with vermilion, which is bright red. She saw the pictures on the wall of these men, and it was like she was already planning, I want to get with that. And verse 15 says, they were girded with girdles upon their loins, exceeding in dyed attire upon their heads. These brothers had their heads wrapped. They were looking good. All of them princes to look to, after the manner of the Babylonians of Chaldea, the land of their nativity. Verse 16, and soon as she saw them with her eyes, she darted upon them and sent messengers unto them unto Chaldea. She's writing letters, sending messages, to these men, to come get with her. Verse 16, verse 17, and the Babylonians came to her into the bed of love, and they defiled her with their whoredom, and she was polluted with them, and her mind was alienated from them. In other words, she really wasn't into them for seeking a husband. She was just whorish. And after she committed the whoredom, they were like, yeah, I'm not even with that. Verse 18, so she discovered her whoredoms, realized what she did. As I said once before, many times people commit sins that they hate, but they continue to do it because they have become civilized in their sin. Verse 18, so she discovered her whoredoms and discovered her nakedness. Then my mind was alienated from her. This is Yahuwah. Like as my mind was alienated from her sister. And this is just as he said in Hosea 4:6 says, if you rejected him, that he would reject you, and for breaking his laws with whoredoms, and he would reject you and your sons and daughters, just like we are enduring the curses right here now. Verse 19, yet she multiplied her whoredoms in calling to remembrance the days of her youth, wherein she had played the harlot in the land of Egypt. So, you know how sometimes we get together and we start remembering what we used to do back in the day? That's what she was doing. She started remembering when she was young in Egypt and how she used to do it. So, in doing this, bringing this back to remembrance, that she figured, oh, I can do this again. Verse 20, for she darted upon their paramons, whose flesh is as the flesh of asses, and whose issue is like the issue of horses. Thus thou callest to remembrance the lewdness of thy youth, in bruising thy tits by the Egyptians for the paps of thy youth. Therefore, Aholabah, thus says Yahuwah, behold, I will raise up your lovers against you, from whom thy mind is alienated, and I will bring them against thee on every side. The Babylonians and all the Chaldeans, Pekod and Sheoah and Koah, these are symbolic names for Babylon, and they all mean punishment. And all the Assyrians with them, all of them desirable young men, captains and rulers, great lords and renowned, all of them riding upon horses. And they shall come against you with chariots, wagons, and wheels, and with an assembly of judgment before them. And they shall judge you according to their judgment. However they want to do it, whatever they want to do it, this is how you're going to be judged. And I will set my jealousy against you, and they shall deal furiously with you. They shall take away your nose and your ears. Meaning they're going to cut your nose off and they're going to cut your ears off. And thy remnant remaining shall fall by the sword. They shall take your sons and your daughters, and your residue shall be devoured with fire. Whatever else is left over is going to be devoured by fire. They shall also strip you out of your clothes and take away your fair jewels. Thus will I make thy lewdness to cease from you, and thy whoredoms brought from the land of Egypt, so that you shall not lift up your eyes unto them, nor remember Egypt anymore. You see, Yahuwah had to bring judgment on the sins of the people, especially when we were in the land, because When we commit sins, any type of whoredoms, it causes the land to mourn, and as I said once before, it will vomit the people out. And in order for Father to clean the land, he had to either kick the people out or destroy them. Verse 28 says, "For thus says Yahuwah, behold, I will deliver you into the hand of them whom you hate, into the hand of them from whom your mind is alienated from. And they shall deal with you hatefully, and shall take away all your labor, and shall leave you naked and bare, and the nakedness of your whoredoms shall be discovered, both your lewdness and your whoredoms." Verse 30 says, "I will do these things unto you, because you have gone a whoring after the heathen, and because you are polluted with their idols. Thou hast walked in the way of your sister, therefore I will give her cup unto your hand. Thus says Yahuwah, thou shalt drink of your sister's cup deep and large, and you shall be laughed to scorn, and had in derision. It containeth much. Thou shalt be filled with drunkenness and sorrow, with the cup of astonishment and desolation, with the cup of your sister Samaria. Thou shalt even drink it and suck it out, and thou shalt break the shreds thereof, and pluck off your own breast. For I have spoken it, says Yahuwah. Therefore thus says Yahuwah, because thou hast forgotten me, and cast me behind your back, therefore bear thou also your lewdness and your whoredoms. This judgment will cause you to bear. You will suffer long suffering. Yahuwah said, moreover unto you, son of man, will you judge Aholah and Aholabah? Yeah, declare unto them their abominations. They have committed adultery, and blood is in their hands, and with their idols have they committed adultery, and have also caused their sons whom they bear unto me to pass for them through the fire to devour them. And I know I read a lot of this in the other video, but I wanted to give the whole of what is happening here throughout these verses in this passage. Verse 38 says, moreover, they have done unto me. They have defiled my sanctuaries in the same day, and have profaned my Sabbaths. And I'll just paraphrase here a little bit. They go and commit their sins, and then they come in the sanctuary of the Most High and call themselves worshiping him. And verse 40 says that, and furthermore, that you have sent for men to come from far, unto whom a messenger was sent. And lo, they come, for whom thou didst wash thyself, paintest thy eyes, and deckest thyself with ornaments. Like the women, the people today, they get all dressed up, they make up their face, they put they glad rags on, and they head out to the street. I remember back in the day, I live in a city where it's a military city, and women would get all dressed up and go to the base because they're going to meet the captains and the men who had positions, trying to lure them. And so same thing. Verse 41 says, and set us upon a stately bed, and a table prepared before it, whereupon thou hast set my incense and my oil. That's the same thing Gomer did. After Gomer was no longer with Hosea, she decided, well, I'll just go back and get with the other dude, because he used to give me all of this stuff. And Father told her, that same stuff that you got from them, it came from me. And we take the things that he has given us, and we go a whoring after other gods with the stuff that he has provided for us. And verse 42, and a voice of a multitude being at ease was with her, and with the men of the common sort were brought, Sabians from the wilderness. It was like she whoring off with any and everybody. which put bracelets upon their hands and beautiful crowns upon their heads. Materialistic. Then said I unto her that was old in adulteries, will you now commit whoredoms with her, and she with them? I mean, she has gotten old now. And she, like I said, she went back and remember, girl, back in the day, I used to do this and I used to do that. Shoot, I can still do that. I can still handle that. So here they are committing adulteries in their old age. And verse 14, it says, yet they went in unto her, and they go in unto a woman that played the harlot. So went they unto Aholah and unto Aholabah, the lewd women. And the righteous men, they shall judge them after the manner of adulteresses, and after the manner of women that shed blood, because they are adulteresses, and blood is in their hands. And the blood that was on their hands is because not only are they committing sexual whoredoms, they are serving the gods of the Assyrians. The god of the Assyrians, they served different gods, and Dagon, I think, is one of them. And they were worshiping the sun god. And one of the rituals of worship was to sacrifice your children. And this is what they were doing. They were sacrificing their children to these gods of the Assyrians. And I'm going to drop down to verse 49, and it says, and they shall recompense your lewdness upon you, and you shall bear the sins of your idols. And you shall know that I am Yahuwah, the Most High. Wow. And then I mentioned in part 2 of this lesson about 3 main sins that cause us to fall away from the Most High. And I call that the power triplets, because all other sins fall under these: money, sex, drugs, and alcohol. Sexual sin plays a major role throughout the book in the Bible. In part 2 of this teaching, I stated that Hasatan set variance between male and female. From the start, as they indulged in sexual sin, the female is dogmatically exposed and condemned for sexual sin. She is called names to further condemn her, but the male gets a pass for committing the same sin as though he is privileged, and this is what he is supposed to do because society has said a man will be a man. A brother some years ago by the name of Lewis said, if sexual perversions make a man, you can pat a dog on his head and call him a man. In the case of the woman brought to Yahushua by men and set her before him to be judged for adultery, but notice they did not bring the man. Let's read Deuteronomy 22, verses 22. And I'm just going to do verses 22 to maybe 24. And I would suggest you read 20 through 29. And it says, if a man be found lying with a woman married to an husband, then shall both of them die, both the man that lay with the woman and the woman, so that thou put away evil from Israel. If a damsel that is a virgin be betrothed unto an husband, and a man find her in the city, and he lie with her, then you shall bring them both out of the gate of the city, and you shall stone them with stones, and they die. The damsel, because she cried not, being in the city, and the man, because he have humbled his neighbor's wife. So thou shalt put away evil from among you. And as I said, I would suggest that you read the entire, the rest of that chapter down to verse 30. Abba had to put sin out of Israel. Those that sin had to be destroyed. This is the way you rid a nation of sin. And that's why death was the penalty in most all cases. And in this case of the men, they brought the woman to be judged for adultery, but they didn't bring the man. See, this is bias in society and in the scriptures. You see, Satan did a number on deceiving us. It's designed to destroy us. Deuteronomy 22 through 30 of that same chapter, I would suggest you read. A man should, yes, Deuteronomy 22 through 30. A man shall not take his father's wife. It also talks about it in 1 Corinthians in chapter 5. Paul was a judge, and Paul was, as well as an apostle, Paul was sending judgment upon the Corinthians. Paul was not there in body, but in spirit. That's verse 3 of 1 Corinthians 5. The men were fornicating with their fathers' wives. And Paul said, this kind of stuff don't go on even among the Gentiles and the heathens. And they had committed these sins, and they were bragging about what they did. That's in verse 2 and in verse 6. Paul spoke and judged them, and the penalty was death. The penalty for committing adultery and all sexual sin is death. Idolatry is in Colossians 3 and 5. It says, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth: fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil, concupiscence, I'm going to get that word right, and covetousness, which is idolatry. And I'm just going to give you a couple of scriptures to go on your own time to read about idolatry. Galatians 5:12. Idolatry is as witchcraft, hatred, variance, emulation, wrath, strife, seditions, and heresies. In Acts 17:16, Paul was grieved when he saw that the whole city was given to idolatry. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 14 tells us to flee idolatry. And 1 Samuel 15:23, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry, because you have rejected to me, and I will reject you. So when we are committing whoredoms and practicing idolatry, we have turned our back on the Most High, and he said he will turn his back on us. And I don't think that we want him to turn his back on us simply over sin that only endures for a moment. And I will complete this, close this, and I pray that you will subscribe, like or dislike, or leave a comment, because there's more to come. And I pray that we all continue to abide by the laws, the judgments, the statutes of the Most High, and keep his commandments. Shalom, shalom.